World Financial Group offers entrepreneurs from all backgrounds the opportunity to start their own business on a level playing field. Dr. Yana Woodhouse, receiving the WCM Wall Street Pioneer Award by the United Black Wall Street of America, Inc., is one of those entrepreneurs.
I see WFG and TFA as a place where African Americans with an entrepreneurial mindset can flourish. And the bonus, we help families and serve the communities across the country.
To learn more about us, go to worldfinancialgroup.com.
We are the sons and daughters of the soul. We are resilient and forever forward-thinking. We ask for nothing else than the opportunity to live and to create the lives that we were meant to live. We want nothing but an equal chance at options and possibilities. The same possibilities and options to live out our potential as our fellow man. We want to be heard, understood, and expressive in our reality. We are the future. We are the creative. We are here.
This is Kia Rogers, and you're listening to Urbanology with my dad, Tony Rogers, on WHCR 90.3 FM New York.
Good afternoon. Hope all is well. This is Tony Rogers, your host for Urbanology, The Art of War. And for many who are watching this show for the first time, my birth certificate states that my name is William Anthony Rogers. And my mom in heaven is smiling because I know that she once told me that, Tony is not on your birth certificate, so remind people what your real name is. So I'm doing that, Mom. And plus, this is ending Women's History Month, and there's so many historic women that should be on it, not only in a month, but all of the time. But you should always take advantage of this time, however, to do the best that we can to highlight women who have achieved in past, present, and some the future. My guest today is an interesting woman, and it's very fitting that our last show for International Women's History Month for 2023 is with my next guest, Sandhi Smalls Santini. She's the author of a wonderful book, SH+AGUAR The Night Huntress. It's about a Black super hero woman, a superwoman. And it's a fascinating book. I'm waiting for the movie, because when you read it, you'll know that it's going to be a hit. Matter of fact, I believe she's also writing a sequel. The other part of Miss Santini that has amazed me, she's a singer. She has been part of a cabaret program and going to hotels all around the world. and she has a one-woman show uh, focused on Eartha Kitt, who I've always admired from a young person. And there's a lot of stories about Eartha Kitt that people just don't know, and she does that. And we're hoping that through the tourism board and some other people that we might be able to get her to have that one-woman show in Harlem one of these days soon. So I would like for you to give a warm welcome to Miss Sandhi Smalls Santini.
Thank you so much for having me, Tony.
Well, thanks for being here. I know that you're a busy lady now with, promoting your book and doing a bunch of different things. But I'm just it's hard for me to know where to start. Obviously, we're going to talk about The Night Huntress because that is something that is a new project of yours. You have a number of other projects, books that have come out, but The Night Huntress is where I guess our connection came about because of the interest. And I was looking for something um, kind of different and special to end our Women's History Month. And I could not find a better way of doing that to talk about uh, a superhero, a superwoman, as you correct
Yeah.
me to say.
Yes.
But you and yourself, you have a lot of stuff, and we'll talk about that too. And I'm saying that because I don't want to forget. And so I want you to remind me of Eartha Kitt. We want to
Yes.
talk a little bit about that because
Okay.
in many cases, and even more talking to you, uh, there's a lot of misunderstanding about this famous woman, and
So much.
and you've helped me with that. But we'll start with you.
Okay.
Tell the listeners, the viewers, and the listeners a little about yourself and where you're from and what led you to writing this wonderful book. Well, a number of them, but this one in particular.
Okay. Well, I was born on Edisto Island, which is a Gullah Geechee Sea Island off the coast of Charleston, South Carolina. And I say that proudly because I'm a proud Geechee.
Now
Born-
you have to allow for people who may not know what a Geechee is because I'm from South Carolina too,
yes.
and
And you know what a
and,
Geechee is.
but tell the listeners who may not be from America what a Geechee is.
Okay, so the Geechees are descendants of West African slaves that were brought from West Africa through the Caribbean to Charleston, South Carolina, and the islands, mainly the islands in Charleston, off the coast of Charleston, Georgia, and Florida. And because the islands are remote and they were removed from the mainland, the Gullahs and the Geechees, actually, the Gullah is the dialect, and it's a bastardization, I believe, of one of the West Indian Angola, from Angola, one of the West Indian languages. And because the islands were so remote and so removed, the the Geechee people were able to retain a lot of their Africanism, a lot of their music, social, even the language which is a patois language. And we were able to embrace and to hold on to a lot of those Africanism that came from the motherland. And even today, you can still hear a little bit of the Gullah dialect in some of the people who inhabit those islands. So there's also a Bible that's written in the Gullah language now.
A Bible?
There is a Bible that's also written in Gullah. Yes, I
Wow.
actually purchased it. I ordered it and waited for it, and I finally got it.
That's interesting.
But it's the Bible translated into Gullah. Yes.
That's interesting. I know that in your book, I was laughing when I was talking. I was reading it, and I said, this KK, I call her, which is going to be your nickname, KK. They have to read the book to understand what that means. But but she's the person who has been infused with Jaguar DNA, and
Yes.
it has these super powers and all of that stuff, which is a whole. But what's fascinating to me is that she comes from where?
South Carolina. Yeah,
And she was an entertainer. She
yes, she was.
traveled throughout the world,
Throughout
singing in
this beautiful world.
cabarets.
Yes.
Um, uh, and one of her closest guardians was a Santini.
Yes, that's true.
And I'm saying to myself, so when I'm reading now, obviously I'm seeing her as you.
Tony, it's all
Because
coincidental.
you put all of that stuff into it that is about your life,
It's all
and that was interesting to me.
yes. The names have been changed to protect
To protect the innocent, right?
Yes.
Even as far as a nightclub that she owned, the Fabulous Club, and in your
Absolutely.
life, at one
In
point,
real life. And it was
you
called Chelsea Place. It was a very popular nightclub with live music 7 nights a week from 5 p.m. until 4 a.m. that my late husband, Giancarlo Santini, owned.
and so it's interesting that your life is put into that. I'm trying to, I said, well, I wonder, I wonder if she can hear better or smell better, or can she read my mind? Because it's interesting how you've kind of put your life into this character.
Yes, yes, yes. But I'll have to tell you though that Kit Cougar to me is she's the protagonist in my book. She's my super shiro, my superwoman, my shiro. And anyhow, Shagwa the Night Huntress is about Kit Cougar. She's an African American cabaret singer, and she happens to own Chelsea Place, which is Manhattan's most swankiest nightclub, right? And so Kit is very comfortable in her bronze skin. And then she learns that during an emergency life-saving transfusion, she becomes a recipient of enhanced manipulated DNA from a very rare melanistic jaguar, thereby transforming her into a super powerful transgenic being that is far beyond human. So now what inspired me most about this book and what drove me to writing this book, I think, is that I've always been surrounded by very strong, very powerful, independent women in my innermost circle, and also women I've grown to know as I grew older. My friends, my associates, schoolmates, people I've just met in passing, and I've been very lucky, I think, to have always been surrounded by women who have influenced me and supported me. And so my protagonist, Kit Cougar, is a conglomerate of all of these very strong women that I've met during my lifetime.
Well, again, the understanding, and I won't give too much about the book, but there's some surprises as it relates to all of this DNA transfer from the good part, and as far as some of the bad issues that come about playing, as you put in the book so many times. You can't play God, but sometimes, and unfortunately, however,
Yes.
for better or for worse, that is happening. Based on the discovery of DNA, and if you read my book, I talk about how DNA is connected to West Africa, and
yes,
was the foundation of the discovery of DNA, and that is the key to life. And based on that, clones have started to develop, and they created a sheep, as the first clone, and
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of scary in some cases for me, being a little older and watching a lot of science fiction movies that now seem to be becoming real.
Yes. Yes. What used to be science fiction is now fact. They're
Yes,
facts. Yeah. They're now fact.
but but tell us a little bit, because it's fascinating, and a lot of people coming from the South, um, it was interesting. Geechee had many different connotations. It's like, you don't mess with them because they're gonna put something on you. they, they, they do that voodoo stuff over there, so you got to be careful. What people don't understand, even when you talk about Haiti, is that it's just that if you were able to maintain some of your heritage and your ancestor knowledge, a
Yeah.
lot of stuff that you were doing was to uh,
Heal.
try to hold on to what your ancestors were dealing with, rather
Yeah.
than being brainwashed in many of the things that the slave master wanted you sometimes to understand.
Yes.
But tell us about growing up in that type of a community that was not set apart, but was a community that was really one that is different from what has taken place in America as far as blacks
Mm-hmm.
coming together in
Mm-hmm.
some sort of a unified one-mindedness thought
Yeah.
pattern.
Yes. I always think that people have a negative connotation when they think in terms of the practices that were brought over from Africa here to America, and I from what I've gathered just from reading and from seeing, and also from having grown up in the midst and the environment of practitioners of what you could say were lores and folklores and practices from the motherland, is that most of the practices were for health reasons. They were for
Mhm.
cures and for healing, and they were for medicinal purposes. And there's a term that's used a lot with the Gullah Geechees called roots. And actually, it's not a negative thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a very well versed knowledge of herbs,
Mhm.
of uses of herbs, their properties and what they're good for, and their healing properties. And the Geechees are very, very good about that. I mean, I can remember my father actually going out into our backyard. And I mean, growing up on an island, it's very rural. And if you walk far enough, you're going to run into swamps. Um, Swamps have some of the best natural herbs you can ever find. They're there. Um, and my
Along
father,
with some things that you don't want to run into,
and other things also, of
like
course,
big snakes and
snakes and alligators.
alligators and
Those exactly, a lot of snakes. Even snakes, though, have been used to cure people. They've been used in medicines also. And so people knew what weeds and what flowers and what plants and trees could be brought back, dried out, cooked, turned into tea, turned into salves, and they were used for more for healing and for strengthening and for renewing people, not so much used for negative
but there
ends.
were some herbs that if you wanted to do somebody, you
Oh yeah,
probably
there
could.
were practices. There were always practices. Yeah, there were practices, and there were practitioners who
Yeah.
you could go to, and they would fix someone if you wanted to have them fixed. So those are terminologies that I heard growing up. Yeah, they could fix you. So yeah, a little bit of that I kind of added into my book also. I threw that
Yeah.
in a little
Yeah.
splash here and there because I think it's a part of of our African heritage and throughout the diaspora. I
Hmm.
think we all, no matter where we are, African people, African children, have a little bit of that knowledge of what we were born with. what we've learned from our ancestors.
Well, again, tell us about how we can get this. I think this is it.
Jaguar, the Night Huntress, yes. Yes.
Amazon. I know you
Yes.
were developing a site soon.
Yeah,
I believe.
there is a site. It's actually available at Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Walmart, and you can also find it at about 13 other online bookstores now.
Mhm.
And there's also a dedicated Jaguar the Night Huntress website that you can log into. And there's also a YouTube channel for Jaguar the Night
Oh wow! Okay.
Huntress. Yes. Jaguar
So
has
I,
become very
so
popular.
you have to text me that because I wanted to write
Yes.
that down because
Yes.
I'm a fan now, so I need to see how I can follow
Yes.
Shagway.
It's simple. It's at Jaguar the Night Huntress. That's it.
Now, and there's a sequel coming, as I
I've
understand.
already started working on the sequel. Yes.
So it's something that I believe can also, when we talk about TV and the Netflix and all of that type of stuff, those, you who's your agent?
Well, Tony, I've also written a television script. I've also adapted
Okay.
the book to television. So I have a television script already written. And I have people who've read the book saying, I'm ready for the next chapter on the next book. I'm ready for it. So,
Well, yeah, I'm as I said, I'm a fan now. I think that it's something that is positive in many different ways as relates to especially young women, but young men understanding how you can overcome certain types of things. But there's
Mhm.
a lot of knowledge that you have in
Yeah.
it, the different types of colognes that people were wearing.
Yeah.
I said, I never heard of that before.
Well,
But
that's,
that's from your travels too. Tell
yeah.
us a little bit about Eartha Kitt.
Oh, okay. She was an incredible woman, as you know, because you actually had the opportunity.
Yeah, she was the
We had,
godmother of one of
yes,
my
to meet
friends
her.
on Convent Avenue.
So,
We used to love when she would visit.
yeah, an interesting character. And I started reading about Eartha Kitt because while I was performing internationally, I would often work in rooms that she had previously worked in, that she had worked in years before. And so there'd always be pictures, photographs of her, and I'd walk in and ever so often people who were at the hotels where I performed, they would say, "Oh, I saw Eartha Kitt here many years ago. You remind me of Eartha Kitt, you remind me of Eartha Kitt." And I've always known that Eartha Kitt was from South Carolina. I've
Hmm.
always known that she's a South Carolina girl, like I am. She was from a part of South Carolina called North
Hmm.
South Carolina. It's near the Orangeburg area. And I actually heard so many times when I was in Turkey and when I was in Germany and when I was in Hungary, in Germany, Italy, that I would work in rooms where I was always compared to Eartha Kitt. And this couple that I got to be very friendly with said, you should write a story about Eartha Kitt and you should do a cabaret about Eartha Kitt. And it was a couple of years after that I actually did it. And I got the opportunity to do it when I enrolled in a playwriting course at Woody King
Woody
Jr.'s
King.
New Federal Theater in New York City. Yes, a friend of mine who handled the workshops there, um, a Jenny D. Washington, who's a great playwright also, told me you have to get into one of these writing classes. And you have to write about this. And so I did, and let me tell you, they had the most amazing playwriting teachers there. I was so lucky to have learned and studied under the teachers there at Woody King Jr.'s workshop. And one of my writing assignments actually was to write a play. And so I decided I wanted to write a play about Eartha Kitt. So I started doing my research and I'd already been encouraged because I'd heard for so many years that I should do Eartha Kitt. Everyone kept saying, "Oh, you should play Eartha Kitt." And so I started writing, I got the support and the encouragement and the drive, and I got the energy from my wonderful teachers there to move forward with it, which I did. So I wrote my first script there, did a table reading of Eartha Kitt, and then they staged our production. So it actually got staged at Castillo Theater on 42nd Street. And then the piece was further developed at New Perspectives Theater here in New York. I did that with a number of, with a group called Stage Struck. Performed it at Manhattan Borough College a number of times. I got reinvited over and over for return engagements to do Eartha Kitt at Borough of Manhattan Community College.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got the opportunity to do it at Ashford and Simpson's Sugar Bar restaurant here in New York City. And it was great. It was wonderful. I had a wonderful time. And most recently, I did it at the Green Room 42 in New York City, where it was a fantastic evening. It was just unforgettable. And
Well, again, as I mentioned to you, one of the things that I would like to try to do is have that done in Harlem. Hopefully, the new
I'd love to
Harlem Marriott Hotel at some point in the future, and maybe even,
do
well,
that.
we'll all kind of be there in some
Yes.
meetings soon. But I like the idea of the story. A lot of people may remember, and it's interesting. Before I go into her life that people weren't aware of, what's interesting to me is that Eartha Kitt was the first Catwoman in the Batman series a long time ago. She
In living color. She was the first Black. Yes,
and
first
and
Black.
and now that I think about it, when we talk about Jaguar, I can see
Yes.
it's a movie. The person would probably have the features of Eartha Kitt because
Oh, they definitely have to have her energy. Yes.
right. But what a lot of people were not aware about with of Eartha, she was always like the sex symbol and um, Santa Baby. She's the one that really made that record a hit with her abilities. But there was another side
Yes.
of her. She was involved in the movement, as I had mentioned. I knew her
The civil
earlier in
rights
life.
movement. She was very active.
Godmother. She used to bring things to people on the block. But later on, in the Panther Party and some other of the movement organizations, she would be a major contributor and support of these types of things. And she was able to take a lot of the information that was going on around the world, as you were saying, to talk about these issues and to discuss different types of things that were happening in America from a Black woman's perspective. So that's the part in the play that I was talking to you about, is that it's
Yes.
important for people to see that other side.
Oh yeah, and in the play, my one woman show that I do, I actually include the luncheon, that infamous luncheon that was held at the White House, and the conversation that took place between Eartha Kitt and then First Lady Bird Johnson, when Eartha Kitt basically told her, "You need to stop sending young Black men to be killed in Vietnam. This is an unwinnable war." And she also told the First Lady, "And while I'm here, what are you going to do about housing for Black people, about better jobs and better schools for Black people?" And because she brought that subject up and she was so forceful in presenting her position, she was blacklisted in this country by the Johnson administration for 10 years. So she went across the country, she went across the world, outside the country, to make a living. She had a daughter, and at that point, she was a single mother. And so she found work elsewhere, and it wasn't until 1978 when she returned as a star in Timbuktu on Broadway. And at that time, she was welcomed back to America by Jimmy Carter and his wife, Jimmy and Rosalind Carter. They invited her to dinner at the White House, not lunch, but to dinner at the White House. And they greeted her with a big sign saying, "Welcome back home, Eartha." So she was definitely welcomed back home.
and her voice was how do you, I don't want to put you on the spot, but can you give us a little bit of her voice?
So, you've come to see Catwoman, have you? Well, I'll do my best to please you. Grrr. I wasn't prepared to do that. You did not tell me you were going to ask me to do that, Tony.
I mean, it's it was great, and I apologize. You know, I'm not going to go out at night because I don't want some dark thing over the roof looking at me.
Seeking revenge.
But it's just that I'm really impressed for a number of reasons. One, because bringing to life someone who was part of my life for a long period of time is very interesting. I'm writing to a couple of friends of mine. I have to find the name of the young man that we used to go and get candy whenever we would visit. I can't think of his name. I'm trying to get his name. Because if I could find his name and if he's still around when we do the show, I want to invite him to that show. That's how I am now. I'm already seeing the show someplace so we can do that. But I see that you have been able to do a lot more work as far as letting people know about your home and some books and about some of the things that people have misunderstandings about. Tell us about some of the other writings that you have done about South Carolina.
I actually, my
one more thing before I forget. I'm sorry. There are a lot of different islands. How did the name of your location come about?
Okay, Edisto.
I'm sorry to jump you around like that.
Okay, not a problem. Well, Edisto was actually named after the original inhabitants of the island, the Edisto Indians. And the Edisto Indians actually lived in the areas of the Low Country, which is my island, and along down through Savannah area. They were called the Edisto Indians. And there's a history between the Edisto Indians and the Africans who were brought there. They got along wonderfully. They actually lived together and they worked together and communicated together. And there was peace and harmony between the Edisto Indians and the Africans. And even to this day, a lot of the people on the island, I mean, and at some point they intermingled. They shared the island. And a lot of their practices got intermingled. And even today, a lot of the people have family names that can be traced back to those original first Americans, the Native Americans, the first Americans, first peoples, I should say, of America.
Edisto
Indians.
Well, and, that's South Carolina, the Cherokee. There's a number of wherever, even in Florida, the Seminole, as far as how Africans became connected to the Indians. Interesting, in North, it was the other way around because they were killing so many Indians and Indians became black. It was safer for them to be black than to be an Indian because the Indians were really being wiped out, in upstate New York a lot. But you also mentioned to me something that I thought was very interesting as to how your family and the network that is part of your family created a way to maintain the integrity of your home rather than make it a tourist trap.
Yes. We have on the island, the Edisto Island Preservation Society. My mother is no longer on this side. She's in another dimension now as we speak of her. But my mother was very active in organizing different churches on the island, parents, different groups on the island. She did not want to see what happened to some of the other islands like Hilton Head and Kiowa, which are now very, very expensive islands and resort areas, and they're overly developed. And my mother, like a lot of the other islanders, did not want to see that happening on Edisto Island. A lot of the ministers, and so they organized and they came together with the Preservation Society. And so my island is very rural. It's very quiet. We have no tall hotels on the island. We have little bungalows, but there are no commercialization that's on the main highway. So the island has been very, very protected, very well preserved, and pretty much intact.
Which is kind of like getting away from it all, huh?
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interesting. And I'm talking about this also because it's so interweaving in the book that it gives people, when they read the book and now they hear you, it comes alive a little bit more, because actually there's so much of what Kit was going through, or her experiences, or actually yours. Except for, I don't know about the blood transfusion and all of that.
There's some influence there. Yes, there is definitely influence.
But even as far as the nightclub, what was that like for you?
Being an owner of a nightclub in New York City was wonderful. It was fun. My late husband, Giancarlo Santini, came here. He was born in Parma, Italy, and came here, and he opened a couple of boutiques before opening Chelsea Place. And then at the point where I met him, Chelsea Place was a very, very popular place with people from all walks of life. A very international melting pot of every and anyone could come into the club, and it was everyone felt comfortable there. Everyone felt comfortable because it was like a small microcosm of the world, pretty much. It was very international and live entertainers. My husband fed a lot of musicians over the years. Fed them because they all came in and they all had a free meal and they got paid. I was one of them. And he started managing my career as a singer. And I sang there for many years. And then I started doing the hotel residencies. But Chelsea Place was a wonderful place. It had 2 levels of music, upstairs jazz, and downstairs it had pop and dance music. And there were 2 bands alternating downstairs all night long. And then there was the jazz room upstairs, which was kind of like a speakeasy. And at one point, people referred to Chelsea Place as the only legal speakeasy in America. That is what that's how reporters used to refer to Chelsea Place.
And Chelsea Place plays a big role in the book because our hero, what is it? Shiro is the owner of Chelsea's Place. And
why not? It was a place that I was familiar with.
And some of the issues that came about that and allowed for her eventually to become that super person that she was based on some of her unwelcome guests.
Yes, exactly.
Who were doing some very bad things. But it's been interesting reading because you have a lot of different things that you touch on, not about the South Carolina, being from, raised in South Carolina, I can kind of understand that, but just as to how what things are going on in the world. Some of them are pretty frightening in the sense as to what's happening in science and what's happening as to this merger of the DNA and all of that. And again, uh, developing these super soldiers, and
Yes.
this is the stuff that used to be, fantasy, but now,
Oh, our government is working on super soldiers.
yeah, I mean, it's funny. I guess when you look at science fiction, it's something that people are looking at and understand that this is uh, not necessarily something that is not going to happen. And sometimes you wonder, well, I hope
Yeah. It's the
I
now
hope
and
some of
here
this
and
stuff,
now.
you know,
Yes.
especially with the AI.
Yes.
I hope that the robots don't start taking over before. I guess it'll be before I won't be around, but it's interesting how life is becoming what used to be fiction,
Hmm.
you know. And where are you? You're going on tour. You're doing some things with your book. So how's your marketing thing going?
I'm actually lined up for some interviews back home in South Carolina
Mhm.
with several local stations in May and June. I'll be doing some interviews there. And I have 2 book signings that I'll be doing down in Charleston, in the Charleston area. And a couple here in the New York area that I have not confirmed yet, but they're being planned and organized as we speak.
Mhm. Well, I know that the Harlem Tourism Board is having an event on May the 19th at Home to Harlem. I don't know what your schedule is like, but that may be a conversation that we can have, that you might be able to do something there. We're promoting a couple of things there, but as a new member,
Yes,
that
I
would be, if your schedule will allow.
am.
What was the motivation of writing the TV script? I mean, other than knowing that you had a good product, but was there something that you were looking to do that you wanted to focus on?
Um, while I was writing the book, I kept saying, hmm, I kept having visuals. I kept having visuals and seeing images, and it
Like
started,
Shagwa, right?
yes, and it started looking more like a television show. The book started looking more like a television show. So I finished the book, and Vanguard was nice enough to publish it for me. They liked it enough to publish it for me. And then I started writing the script. And the script was very easy. The script was very easy because the visuals were already there for me,
Mm-hmm.
and everything sort of fell in line. And I kind of I wanted to write a television show like the book is. I wanted to write a television show that was like that had a narrative that was like here and now and set in a sci-fi television show that was set in present time. I did not want it to be a story about futuristic journeys to distant planets, and I didn't want it to be about a ruined dystopian Earth, after cataclysmic decline.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted it to be about the world that we currently live in, and I wanted there to be like real people, relatable characters,
Mm-hmm.
um, and so my main character, my protagonist, my lovely Kit Cougar, um, is definitely not a girl from planet Krypton, and she's not a robotic cyborg. She's a woman. She's a flesh and blood woman. She's a mother. She's a wife. She's a good friend to the circles to her, the people in her circles, and everyone she comes into contact with. And on top of that, she's a very successful businesswoman. So she's my Shiro is an every woman, and that's what I wanted her to be. I wanted her to be an every woman, and like I said, she's an accumulation of the strong women who've influenced me in my lifetime,
Hmm.
and that's how I'd like people to relate to her.
Can you give the website again slowly so that people might be able to get it?
Yes, it's going to be Shagua, and I'll spell it. That's SHAGUAR, the THE, night NIGHT, Huntress, HUNTRESS.com.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Jaguar, the Night
Yes.
Hunters.com.
And I got the name Jaguar. That's it. The nighthuntress.com. Absolutely. It's SH plus, but you don't have to put the plus in it. She plus Jaguar. That's how I came up with the name Jaguar.
Okay. SHAGUARTHENIGHT Huntress, HUNTRESS.com.
Yes.
Very interesting. The Night Huntress. I I keep seeing you in this as I'm
It's the night
reading
huntress.
and seeing her
Beware.
doing all of this stuff. I'm saying, this is Sandy here.
Beware.
I know that it was done purposely, but what, I guess, did you want to get from making Kit so much like yourself?
It was kind of a search, kind of a discovery, and kind of, I think, kind of a wishful thing that most girls, ladies, and women all aspire to be. We all want to be super women. We want to be superheroes, and we want to be the kind of women who take care of things and who make wrong right and who bring about good. And that's what I want to put forth. That's the takeaway that I want people to have with my book and with my shiro. That everyday people can do amazing, super things.
Well, again, that's a wonderful message. I think it's a fitting message, especially for this time of year, International Women's History Month. Although, like Black History Month, it's a 24. It should be all of the time, not just one month. But
366 days a year.
That's the 24/7, 360 days of the year. However, it is here, and I'm so happy to have had you to be our anchor for the show, focusing on historic and legendary and women who have accomplished so much, and there's so many of them. It's more than a month can handle, which is something that we could have a 12-month tribute to all of the different women who may not be in the papers, but were there to make those who are in the papers be in the papers.
Exactly.
It's a lot of things that are not often talked about as far as that person, that support system that is given. I am so happy that you were able to take some time out of your busy schedule, because I know you're doing many different things, especially now that this book is hot and starting to develop its own bit of energy within itself. And I'm happy for you. I'm glad that in some way our orbits have come about, and as I can, I will try my best to let people know, help you in promoting. Welcome to the tourism board, as I indicated before. I would like you to. I know that there has been some conversations with Soul City that maybe there could be some cabaret nights at the new hotel that's coming up. That's due to open May 18th.
Yes.
I would like for you to be that person from the tourism board to give some
it would be
advice
my
and direction. Since you've been in cabaret settings, which is something else. And we have a minute or so. I was not aware that there were agencies that would book singers and people to all of the different hotels. Could you just briefly talk to us a little bit about
yeah. Most of the agencies that I got booked through were from they were agencies that booked for hotels, ships. I worked with an agency from Canada, and I worked with several agencies in Italy. A lot of the agencies, booking agencies, and they're called hotel residency singing agencies. That's what they're called. And they have a roster of their duos, their trios, their quartets, solo singers. I mainly performed as a solo singer, which meant I would be flown into a hotel.
Mm-hmm.
I would meet the house band.
Mm-hmm.
They would go over my music maybe once if we were lucky. Sometimes we didn't have time to have a rehearsal, and so we'd hit it. Those were interesting times, but fun. And then I'd remain at one hotel for 3 months or 4 months, however long my contract was. And they were mainly 4 and 5 star hotel chains and resorts. And so I would do my contract, fulfill my contract at one hotel, and then they would fly me to another hotel. So I would leave Italy and go to Germany or France or Germany, and then Turkey, Greece, Hungary, and then Seychelles, Africa. So it was fun. It was interesting.
Sounds like an interesting way to see the world.
It was. It was a great way to see the world. It really was. Yeah.
Well, and traveling always broadens the mind, as Malcolm said. So I'm sure that a lot of the things that you were able to see allow for you to put that type of knowledge into what you are doing now, writing and
yes,
and developing these wonderful books. So Sandhi Smalls Santini, thank you so much for being a guest on our show. I look forward to doing some other things with you. We're going to bring Eartha to Harlem at some point. So I'm going to go on record as saying that I want to be involved in putting that type of production together for many different reasons. And for those who are listening, SH+AGUAR The Night Huntress.
Yes.
By there you go. Sandhi Smalls Santini. And when you read it, the club is real, the island is real.
Yes.
All of the stuff that is in that book that Kit Cougar, who is the superwoman, her experiences in Sandini. I mean, it's this lady here. So that makes it interesting. We have a real live superwoman
we had to make her real. We had to make her real.
Well, you did do that. And the more I talk to you, the more I learn about your home, the more I can see how that really was something that came into being based on your writing. So congratulations on what you've done. Thank you. And of course, the sequel will have you come back and do some other things, or to probably the next time, maybe not the next time, because you were at the tourism board, so there may be some others, but we're going to have a show announcing the Eartha one-woman show that's going to take place in Harlem at some point. So
yes, for sure. And you can actually see a bit of it on Cotton to Caviar. I have a website that's devoted right to my Eartha Kitt show.
Okay, and what is it?
Cotton to Caviar. Cotton to Caviar.com. Okay. And that's the name of my show, Eartha from Cotton to Caviar. But the website is Cotton to Caviar. Yes, and it's all about my Eartha Kitt show. Yes.
That's interesting.
Yes.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Every time I talk to you, I learn something new. Okay, thank you so much, Sandy. We will be back with you. I hope to see you actually next week when we do the walkthrough. So
Yes.
you take care of yourself
Thank you
and
so
good
much,
luck.
Tony, for being so gracious and for having me on your wonderful Urbanology. Thank you.
It was a pleasure, and that's pretty much it for today for our show. Next week, uh, we are actually going into more of a spring. Some people talking about looking at vacationing. Um, so I have an interesting guest that we're working on. Uh, if you're interested in the Bahamas, um, you should tune in because there's some surprises that hopefully you'll learn about traveling there. And in October, our next trip to Senegal is going to be in October. Our next show, I'll be able to give the exact dates of the October trip to Senegal. So until then, thank you so much. Thanks Soul City, Matt McCoy, and the Soul City team for allowing us to have a platform to once again allow for you to see some of the things that sometimes you might not be able to see, or some of the people that you might not be able to see. That's why we should always support our Black media because it's about us and it helps us to create our own narrative, as my good friend Matt McCoy always talks about. The focus of Soul City is being able to create your own narrative. Thank you. Tony Rogers. Hopefully, see you next week.
This is Kia Rogers, and you're listening to Urbanology with my dad, Tony Rogers, on WHCR 90.3 FM New York.
Urbanology.